Welcome back to our second video in our burnout series. The first video was really just kind of introducing kind of more of the macro view of burnout and what we're going to be exploring in this series. And in this video, we're going to take some time and really define what burnout is. Because again, like I said in the previous video, we all experience it so differently and on such a big spectrum that sometimes it is hard to really define what it is. So kind of, from all sorts of resources, but kind of the most concise definition that I could find is that burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet the constant demands. So for some, that may look like a time in your day or your week or maybe your life that you were super stressed or irritable or exhausted or unhappy, confused on the next steps, unsure, etc. Maybe it lasted a day or maybe it lasted a little bit longer, but being able to look at all of our lives over the past 2 years or so, we've all been exposed to some prolonged stress. And likely we had some excessive and prolonged stress happening in our lives before we knew what COVID was, before we had some racial awakenings in our country that were long overdue, political stressors, family drama, all the things. And we've all been, again, different degrees of exposed and experiencing this extra on top of living our lives and being humans in a difficult society and being able to navigate work and personal life and relationships and finances and all the things that create stress and exhaustion in our life. So being able to see that sometimes burnout has patterns to it, but sometimes it may show up very differently in our lives when we do have these extra layers of prolonged stress added to us. So maybe a lot of people before COVID were really good at navigating their, hectic and stressful lives and their high demanding jobs and navigating children and all the things. But since COVID has added that layer, maybe to healthcare professionals or to service industries or whatever field you may be in, it's just like that straw that kind of broke the camel's back in a sense, because it's just this prolonged space of when is this going to end? And so it maybe shows up in our lives differently than how burnout or stress has before. We've maybe found ourselves being super stressed or irritable or exhausted around tasks that before we could have accomplished with maybe little to no thought, but now it's taking a lot from us to kind of get those things down or done or off of our list. And sometimes that's a bit of a sign of okay, let's pause, let's slow down, let's take a look at what's going on. Maybe we are in that burnout loop or approaching it. So just being able to know that there's lots of things that kind of come into play with burnout, but most of the time it's going to show up in your life as that emotional, physical, or mental exhaustion caused by that excessive or prolonged stress. Maybe we're just burnout at work and we're not burnout at home, or vice versa. It doesn't have to be this universal exhaustion or drained space that we're in, but sometimes it does show up in all environments that we show up in. So again, next videos we'll focus a lot more on burnout, and we'll just kind of be releasing them periodically to complete the series. But until next time, be well.